they couldn't find any indication to show that DAP was behind the push for ISED to be rectified. After their earlier claim that DAP was the real power in Pakatan Harapan, that Pakatan Harapan had won the 14th general elections, Lim Kee Siang will be the Prime Minister. After that failed, they still can continue with some new script that the DAP is anti-Malay, anti-Islam agenda is still the power behind the throne, and Mahathir is only my stooge and my puppet. MCA's word, of course, says that I have betrayed, but I think these are the problems we face. And that's why I think it's important that we are aware of these complex problems in our society. That I think the challenge for us is how we can become a world-class, world-class nation. If Jomo can go to UN and hold such a high position, there's no reason why Malaysians cannot top the world. How do we compete with the rest of the world and show our leverage on the assets from the different diverse races, religions, civilizations that meet in confluence in Malaysia, instead of warring among ourselves to kill each other, to eliminate each other. I think that is the challenge. And I think the May the 9th historic day has given us an opportunity for a reset nation building policies. We want to be able to transform ourselves from a global kleptocracy into a leading nation of integrity. Can we do it? That was the President Gomez's special challenge. Can we do it? To turn ourselves from a global kleptocracy into a leading nation of integrity. It's not easy. Last 6-7 months, are we moving that direction? Can we turn ourselves into a nation which tops the world in terms of excel in every field of human endeavor? Transform our educational system, primary, secondary, tertiary, to be among the best in the world. Our education system is a mess. How do we do it? How do we ensure that we can be a model of the world? Diverse races, religions, civilizations come together and be united. I remember I was in Jordan and in Tunisia, and I met and discussed with some of the Islamic scholars. And we agreed that Islam 1,400 years ago was the greatest reform movement. So what we should do is to go back 1,400 years ago to relive the values, to rediscover and to give new meaning to the values that make Islam 1,400 years ago the leading Reformation movement, and not to go back to re-establish the structures and the institutions which were necessary at that time. In the context of that time, they were improvement. And why should we look at Middle East? The Middle East should look at Malaysia. We should leverage on the best of our different civilizations, customs, religions, cultures to develop a new civilization for the world. Can we do it? Can it be done? Yes. We dream these big dreams, and I think this is what we do. Dare to dream big dreams, but to do that, we must rise above our different races, languages, religions, and cultures, and see them as assets, and not see them as liabilities where we divide ourselves, we fracture ourselves. So I think it's not easy. A new Malaysia is struggling to be born. A new Malaysia has not been born yet. What happened on the 9th of May is a beginning. They give Malaysians an opportunity to move away from a global kleptocracy, a failed state, a kleptocracy, and hope that we become anew. Can we do that? There's no guarantee that New Malaysia will succeed. New Malaysia may fail. It will take 5, it would take, it can be can't be accomplished in 100 days, 2 years, or even one electoral cycle. We need 10, 20 years. Do we have the courage? Do we have the stamina? Do we have the perseverance? Do we have the vision? Not to be distracted by tomorrow's so-called rally from this vision. That is our challenge. And that is, I think, should be the meaning of 509. Otherwise, 509 will be meaningless. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite you to just remain in front of the stage. Now we'd like to proceed on to the launch of the book 509, as people have spoken. I'd like to invite Natusha Naidu, Trisha Yeo, Mr. Chiu, Pa Chong, and the writers of the book for a quick photo op.
Nampak kita bikin resi. Angkat ni kan. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone very much. Now on to the main event, a panel discussion titled New Malaysia, Old Politics. We are most grateful to have Wadi Lintisia, Trisha Yeo, Prof. Terence Gomez, Prof. Jomo to join us for this session. The panel will be moderated by Natusha Naidu of Imagine Malaysia. I'd like to invite the panelists and moderators to join us on stage. Please welcome them.
Hi everyone, good morning. As earlier, thanks Jeremy, my name is Natusha, and I would also like to thank Imran Rasid on behalf of Gerak Budaya for inviting me to be part of this very important episode in shaping the discourse surrounding a very historic moment for this country. I'm also very grateful to be the moderator for today's discussion with a very prominent guest. And please allow me to make an introduction about each of them on this panel. And of course, YB itself needs no introduction, as everyone knows. You know, what a great statesman he has been. But on my left is Professor Jomo Kwame Sundram. Yes, by right. Oh my God. Okay, so as you all know, Prof. Jomo, he was appointed as a member of the Council of Eminent Persons, which we also known as the Malaysian Avengers. And he's a prominent economist. Prof. Jomo has taught in the Kennedy Institute of Politics in Harvard and the University of Malaya. He has Prof. Jomo had a very illustrious career in the United Nations, as everyone knows. And of course, I think you all know that Prof. Jomo has also published a lot of works covering a wide range of subjects, from development economics and industrial policy to affirmative action, ethnic relations and Malaysian history. And I believe one of his seminal works, besides A Question of Class, is Warisan Ekonomi Mahathir, which I think has returned to become very, very relevant, and I hope we will visit during the discussion later on. And on my left is Trisha Yeo. She's currently on study leave from her position as Chief Operating Officer at IDEAS, Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, which is an independent public policy think tank based in Kuala Lumpur. She has dedicated herself to a life of research. She has worked in the Selangor State Government, Institute Rakyat, and the ASPI Center for Public Policy Studies. She is the co-editor of The Spirit of Merdeka, editor of The Road to Reform, Pakatan Rakyat in Selangor, and author of States of Reform Governing Selangor and Penang. She has also contributed academic articles for several international publications. Moreover, Trisha has produced a documentary called The Rights of the Dead, which tells the story of the late Teo Beng Hock, who died in 2009 under the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission's custody. The film has won the Justin Louis Award at the Freedom Film Festival in 2012 and was selected for screening at the 9th Al Jazeera International Documentary Films Festival 2013 in Doha. And on my extreme left is Professor Edmund Terran Gomez, who is a professor of political economy at the Faculty of Economics and Administration, University of Malaya. He specializes in state market relations and the linkages between politics, policy, and capital development. He served as a research coordinator at the United Nations Research Institute for Social Development in Geneva. Besides serving on many editorial boards and advisory committees for academic journals, Prof. Gomez is the author of the recent publication Minister of Finance Incorporated, Ownership and Control of Corporate Malaysia, which I think is available outside if you would like to purchase it. This book has made a very important contribution to understanding the economic relations of the Malaysian state and its ruling elite. And without further ado, let's get into the discussion. So, I've been told that we are supposed to discuss about the topic New Malaysia, Old Politics. And basically some of the panel will be looking at into the development of domestic politics since the recent general elections, and we'll try to answer several crucial questions that are played in the minds of people. What does this new administration want to realize in their new Malaysia vision? Are old political practices, corruption, misuse of power, and unbalanced economy back to haunt our country and our politics? So for the first round, I'll be inviting each panelist to give their quick comments and some of their contentions in response to the theme for today's discussion. And we'll start off with Prof. Terrence on my left. Yeah.
Thank you. I thought I was being last. Let me first welcome Mr. Lim Kit Siang. We are honored to have you here today, Mr. Lim. I'd also like to welcome back Professor Jomo. It's nice to have you back here in the faculty. I want to congratulate the authors of this book. I was quite impressed with the book in the sense that it covered all the key topics I found to important in the run to the general election. The chapters in this book discuss kleptocracy, affirmative action you just heard from Mr. Lim, ICRD issue. They also brought up China, and they discussed Saudi Arabia, and they had a very interesting reflection on both Mahathir and Anwar. This is important because Mahathir is, as you know, current president, and Anwar is about to take over as Prime Minister of the country. I want, however, to focus on the topic of the book, New Malaysia, Old Politics. My main concern is about affirmative action, because I think that is an issue we have to discuss. I have also concerns about the GLCs, but I don't have time to get into all these topics. I will focus on just one issue. Political financing and money politics. Has Malaysia changed after May 9th? The real defining election was 2008. In 2008, in the peninsula, the Pakatan won the popular vote. They got control of 5 state governments, and they had a huge presence in parliament. And we thought at that time, in 2008, now is the time to bring about a change in the financing of politics, because money politics by that time had become a scourge in this country. And we started work with Transparency International. And we even came up with a book, Reforming Political Financing in Malaysia. There was no take-up from the Barisan Nasional, and to my surprise, there was no take-up from the Pakatan. And the whole situation came to an end. That was the end of the issue on reforms of financing of politics. The Bersih took it up. I was actually quite surprised that this didn't transpire to seize the moment to bring about change, because Bersih in 2007 talked about reform of money politics. It's there in the list of issues. So I thought in 2008 there will be a surge of support for an endeavor like this. It didn't happen. It didn't happen because on both sides now, a lot of money was being channeled to both sides for the financing of politics. After all, Pakatan now had control of 2 important state governments, Selangor and Penang. And then came 1MDB. But even after 1MDB, there was not much discussion about political financing. The focus was on 1MDB. And then came the great announcement. An enormous volume of money had flowed into the account, the personal account of the Prime Minister. A slush fund, 2.6 billion ringgit, was now on the Prime Minister's account. And the Prime Minister at the time, Najib, said, okay, the money was there, but it came from Saudi Arabia, it's a donation, and I'm using this money, I use this money for electoral purposes, to finance the elections. That should have sent up a lot of red flags about political financing, because it exposed not just the fact that we had slush funds, it exposed that we had foreign funding. Saudi Arabia was funding our elections. What were the implications of this? So what Najib did was he set up a committee led by Paul Loh, who should have known better. Paul Loh at the time was responsible for this book too. But Paul Loh in the committee said we will reform, but we will only discuss legislative reforms, no institutional reforms. And I remember having this debate with him, and I said, no, if you have only legislative reforms, this will benefit Barisan, it will not benefit all parties. You must have institutional reform to devolve power so that there will be a level playing field. And he said, no, only legislative reforms. And so an NGO, 80 NGOs came together and came up with their own set of reforms, a far more comprehensive reform. And we took it to both sides. Najib didn't respond to this. And we took it to Parliament. We met with parliamentary members, but it didn't get taken up too much. But it was, to be fair to them, put in the manifesto. If you read the PH manifesto, it is there. Of course, my question to Pakatan Harapan at that time was this: why do you have just 2 paragraphs on political financing when we have a whole full set of reforms? Just say, we'll take this, we'll review this, you don't have to accept everything, but we will review it. It's already done. They didn't. Now, what is in this report, or these recommendations, that to my mind seems to worry political parties? In this report, what we said is you need two things, institutional reforms and you need legislative reforms. But it says one more thing, which is very unusual. It says we must have internal party reforms. We must monitor elections within parties. We are talking now about the need for intra-party democracy. This is also important. Why? Because this phenomenon about money politics was not new. It started in 1981. It became another problem in 1984, in 1987, and again in 1993, in the election when Anwar became Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy President. And in that election, after that, Mahathir himself called for a special meeting of UMNO to review the financing of politics. And he said his words, "This is a cancer that has permeated the body politic." Like the good doctor he is, he used the analogy of cancer. And yes, it is a cancer. And nothing happened. So why am I calling for this intra-party democracy reform? I'm saying this now because what we have seen is if you don't deal with this, you will have great destabilization within the parties. We saw this in UMNO in 87, we saw it again in 1998, we saw it again in 2016. You don't deal with the problem, this is going to cause friction within the party, and this is what you get, destabilized parties. You'll also see that when we have destabilization in the parties, this can lead to serious feuding which will spill over into national politics. And we saw that. We saw this in the past. Razali leads the party, then we saw Anwar leading the party, and now we saw Mahathir leading the party. All coming back to issues relating to the financing of politics. So why is there this reluctance to deal with it? And if it was then, if it spilled over into the national politics, then as you saw in 2013, and as you saw also in 2018, it has become a national malaise. Now you see money politics also being practiced in national elections. If before it was just within parties, now it's become a national problem. Let's talk now about new politics, or new Malaysia, and old politics. After May 9, we've had two party elections. The first party election of great significance was UMNO. UMNO had fallen. One would think that UMNO, having fallen, they would now be a major revamp, a soul searching. Okay, one of the reasons we felt, and everyone agrees, we felt because of one MDB and money politics, let's deal with that. But did they? Instead, we saw more money politics in the UMNO election. And what we also saw was the re-election of the old guard. And then we had another party election. Party Rakyat, PKR. And you saw what happened in PKR's election. It was an election which had serious allegations of money politics. It was out there in the open. Is this the new politics we expected after May 9th? Now, in response to that, what we have to say is this. When you have, and I've said this to the parties, when you have money politics, what does it mean? It impacts the choice of your leaders. If you do not deal with this, the incumbents will come back into power when we need a sea change of leadership. And you saw that in UMNO. And you will see the consolidation of power even at a time when the party needs change. UMNO is not willing to accept this change. What does this mean now for new politics if we do not have an opposition that is truly viable, wrapped in this money politics that we are seeing now? The second issue, it curbs dissent. If you do not deal with this, it will curb dissent. Najib showed this so well. The party knew they had to get rid of this extremely corrupt leader, and they didn't do it. He had the capacity to curb it also because he had the money to buy these people over. The third issue, and we saw this very clearly, it curbs the rise of really good leaders. If young people do not have access to money and they can't get the kind of money they do because they are not elected reps, they are not in the mainframe, whatever, it suppresses young leaders from coming to the fore. The current leaders will ensure that they remain in power. Another issue which is very important. If the current leaders remain in power, then this also has a serious problem in terms of the selection effect. Who gets selected to run for federal and state elections? The people who are selected will tend to be people who we, the electorate, don't want. In UMNO, who did we get? We got Najib, we got Anwar Musa, we got Isa Samad. Corrupt leaders who should not be running were running. But since I'm on the topic, and we are talking about leaders with serious allegations of corruption, what of Shafi Abdal in Warisan? This is something we got to think about. And since I'm talking about selection of candidates, let's talk about PKR2 in terms of the problems in selecting candidates in the run-up to the election. There was a serious feud in the party in their choice of candidates to the point that other NGO leaders had to come up and say, Ambika, I remember, saying, stop this nonsense. How were candidates selected? Were these the candidates that we wanted? And a final issue on this, which I have to touch on, which is a serious problem now, which we saw in 2013. If you read the book, Hishamuddin writes a very interesting article about how parties in BN and in the opposition were striking deals, UMNO and PAS. And he draws reference to how Najib may have given funds to PAS. A secret pact may have emerged. I think there was a secret pact between UMNO and PAS. Is this proper? Is this how parties should run the elections? Is this how parties should act in a run-up to a federal election? And these are issues also. Why did PAS also go into a pact with UMNO? Where did they get the money from? The three-cornered fights that occurred. So these are important issues that we have to address, because I say now, the reforms have now gone out. It's now with the reform committee. I've heard there are 3 committees looking at this issue. But I'd like to ask this. Will there be internal party reforms? In these reforms, will they accept the need to bring about transparency within parties too in elections? Now this is important because most people will argue in a liberal democratic tradition, parties should not have, there shouldn't be oversight. We shouldn't monitor what's happening within parties. But in the context of Malaysia, I'm afraid this just doesn't hold. It doesn't hold because we have seen on both sides there are serious problems with the financing of politics. There's another reason why we must look at internal party democracy. Because one of the recommendations made here, which we are pushing for, is there must be public funding of parties. Parties need money. If you want to have a well-functioning democracy, they must have access to money. And public funding of parties is not an uncommon phenomenon. 75% of democracies around the world do it, because they recognize the importance of giving money to parties. But if we give money to parties, public funds, then the parties must be transparent internally too. And they must also run their elections democratically. And they must select candidates that we, the electorate, can say, okay, these are good candidates. Is that going to happen? If we want new politics, I've been told I have only short time left. I really like to say a lot more about the problems with all this. And a lot of problems. No, it's not a laughing matter. It's not a laughing matter because, look at the recent PKR election. I'd like to come back to that. We talk about public funding. We wanted public funding because we don't want parties to be captured by businesses. State captured by businesses. They fund the parties, then they can capture the state, then they determine public policies. But now we have another phenomenon. Businessmen are entering into the party system themselves. Businessmen are also financing themselves within party elections to get to the top of the party hierarchy, and then they become state leaders. Is that good? What happens when businessmen become party members too? And this is a serious problem also in Sarawak. We've seen it. prominent businessmen entering into the electoral process, becoming MPs. This is not a laughing matter, because if we do not reform the financing of politics, be prepared for such state capture to happen. Will we see the reforms that we expect to truly clean up the state? Or will we now go down the road of Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra, a businessman capturing control of the state, and now look at Thailand? And why should I go so far? What about Donald Trump? A businessman capturing control of the state. Is this the kind of new Malaysia we want? And what about party hopping? And when people hop, I can't get into the details, but people hop, they stop, they've been bought over. The extent to which money prevails in politics in this country is serious. If we do not capture this moment, seize this moment to bring about the reforms, we have lost the opportunity to bring about real change. And then this new Malaysia will continue to see old politics. And that indeed would be a tragedy for Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Gomez. I think that's a very strong way to start a very critical discussion. And we will explore this further in the second round after the rest of our speakers have given their insight. So next, I'd like to invite Trisha to give her
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to first thank Daya and Mental Publishing for inviting me here. Good morning as well to my esteemed panelists. The academic giants are actually here, right beside me, Prof. Jomo, Dr. Terence, and of course, where we live. It's an honor to speak with them. And congratulations to the young team of editors, Jeremy, Imran, Yvonne. I think you did a splendid job in doing this in 2 months. I know the process of publishing, editing books, and 2 months is really quite a feat. So congratulations. So this has been a significant year. I think listening to the speakers before me, it reminded me of the kind of feelings that I went through as we woke up after the 9th of May. But this has been a significant year, not just because of the change of government. For me personally, I had a year of hope as well. My daughter was born shortly after 9th of May. So, as you can imagine, it has been a completely overwhelming year for me. And indeed, for many, I think this was an election of hope. And the title of today's panel is New Malaysia, Old Politics. But recent incidents also show that there are undercurrents that indicate otherwise. There are so many things to reflect upon, so many incidents that have taken place since 9th of May. But today I'm just going to focus on one particular area, which is basically the relationship between the current federal government and the current state governments, which is an area that I think many people forget about. There's so much news about race, about religion, about party politics and corruption, but we need to look as well into what's happening in the states. So maybe just to give a snapshot of the situation, we all know that this is the first time in the country's history that VN UMNO has lost and have become opposition. But it's also the first time that they are leading opposition states. So don't forget that they still have the states of Perlis, of Pahang, and the other party that I think perhaps we in the middle class urban electorate forgets is that PAS still holds power in 2 states, Kelantan and Terengganu. So there are a lot of undercurrents there which we still need to look into. So the caveat before I get into my points is that I think we're only 6 months in, 6-7 months after the election. I think it's a little bit too soon to tell what is going to happen within the next term, but these are just some observations that I have currently. So I'm just going to make 3 points with regards to the federal-state relations in the new Malaysia. And if I have time, I will comment a little bit more about some other things. But the 3 points that I want to make is first, I wonder, and these are also just questions because like I said, it's a little bit too soon to tell. I wonder if there is a risk of the current Pakatan government maintaining the Barisan national culture of before. We know now, following from what Prof. Terence said, that the BN operated very largely on a lot of the political corruption, and money politics has contributed to the situation that led to their downfall. But for instance, I'll just give you some examples that we have in the news of late. We know that Pakatan actually has given less allocations to opposition members of parliament. For example, Pakatan MPs would get 500,000 ringgit per MP, whereas the opposition MPs get 100,000 ringgit. So that's already an imbalance there. And then secondly, you have some claims of the opposition members not being allowed to go into places like schools. And in Johor, the opposition leaders said that no opposition leaders have been allowed to attend all of the state government functions. And this is a reminder, actually, of what Pakatan itself went through as an opposition when it won power in 2008. So for 10 long years, many of the opposition leaders, although they won over in states like Penang and Selangor, were not allowed to go into state government functions. So the question is the federal government going to maintain such a culture, or if they are they going to practice what they preach, which is truly wanting to demonstrate democratic leadership qualities? It should allow some of these things to take place. But I understand it's difficult because they have lived under the thumb of BN for all these years, reduced allocations and so on. So that's a question, the first point. The second point, which I actually alluded to earlier, is that UMNO running opposition states is a new thing altogether. In the past, just imagine that when they were, for example, in Perlis and Pahang, they never had to really care so much about where they're going to get their finances from. So Pahang is a really good example. Right now, it's under UMNO, it's under the opposition. And it has been reported to have incurred a 3.2 billion ringgit debt. That's a huge amount of money. It's come out in the news. But my point is that this never had to be an issue. This never had to be a concern before, because perhaps the past federal government could just, close one eye and say, okay, I'm going to continue channeling some of these funds over to the state, no matter how big a hole you are making for yourself. So, which means that these new states, this new scenario that we're looking at, the states will actually have to come up with new strategies to deal with these issues. So in the Pahang example, where the debts come from, they came from uncollected taxes, low-cost housing rent, since the 1970s, mind you. So it's many decades of uncollected tax, and now they're trying to, have this new strategy of collecting the monies again. I'm not sure how they're going to do that for all these many decades. Pahang has also set up something called the Pahang Investment Corporation to restructure their state GLCs. So these are some of the strategies, and of course the MP of Pahang has also appealed to the federal government, oh please reconsider the cancellation of the ECRL project, because 14% of work has already begun in the state. We can't afford not to have it because there's going to be economic profits that are wasted if it doesn't happen in the state. So what are they going to do, and how are they going to deal with